Okay, I believe we are live on Facebook. Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining us for our first Q&A series about consular services being hosted by Palcus. My name is Angela Simoes. And this series is really just meant to answer a bunch of questions that we get, that Palcus gets on a regular basis about things like, what kind of documentation do I need to do this? What's the process for getting citizenship? So we're getting lots of questions. So we thought, why don't we just go ahead and go live and answer some of these questions? It'll be recorded. We'll make it available for people. So we're just here to try and be helpful and get some questions answered that people may have. And to do that, we have the Honorary Consul from Miami, Carolina Rendeiro. Thank you, Carolina, for joining us. And we invited Carolina because she is getting lots and lots of calls, and she seems to be on the phone every day, all day, answering the same questions. And so very knowledgeable, even though there are multiple honorary consuls throughout the country who are equally as knowledgeable. We invited Carolina to join us today. So thank you, Carolina, for joining us.
I know, it's my pleasure. And I first welcome everyone that's listening, and I really appreciate having this opportunity. I think because it helps you understand who we are. Usually honorary consuls, we have very limited responsibilities. We represent, we are Portugal on the ground wherever we are. We're out here in our communities trying to create new business and bring in business from Portugal, but also companies in our local areas that want to go and open businesses in Portugal. So those are usually our main focus. Miami's a little bit different, where since July of this year, we have had we have a service known as what would be considered uma loja de Portugal in Portugal. Here we're uma permanência. All right, so we only have consular services 1 week out of the month in Miami, but we do service a lot of people. And that is not me servicing them, because I am not from the diplomatic corps. So I do not have that. I'm not an employee of the ministry. So what we do have, my colleague who does come down, who is an employee, comes to Miami for a week from our other office in Palm Coast, Florida. But during the course of the month, I answer the phone calls locally in Miami, return the calls, and also handle any questions that come in, and set up all the appointments. So that's how I got to learn a lot too, what's going on. And I'm here to just kind of help out in answering some of the questions that I get. And a lot of it, of course, has to do with, we can't find anything on the website. It's there, okay? And I'd love to just tell you how to get to it, because sometimes people put an Embassy of Portugal in the search, and sometimes it's not our full embassy, website that comes up. It comes up a government where all international embassies are, okay? So that one doesn't have all the information. And I'm telling you, I found out the hard way before I was honorary consul. So you basically—
And we can put that link. We'll provide that link to make sure everybody goes to the right place.
So once you're on that link, it's really interesting, because you go to the consular section, then you go to consular services, and you'll find everything and anything you need to know. So I think most of the questions I get, and I'm just going to shoot them out, and is, I was born in, my mother was born in Portugal, and but she's an American citizen now, and I want to become a Portuguese citizen. I want, the nationality through my mom. So, I always start out by asking the very first question did your parents get married in Portugal, or is their marriage registered in Portugal? Because that is like one of the crucial questions and steps in getting that, nationalization through your parents. And most of them either don't know, which, I knew because, in my case, but most people don't know. And so when they do find out, is how do you get that done? And because I'm just what I tell a lot of people is that in the eyes of the Portuguese government, if your parents' marriage was not registered in Portugal, it means you don't exist. Okay. So when I explain it that way, people get it, okay? And I think that's an important way to express it because our government is strict on this. We just don't give away, citizenship, but I think it's important. And that is, once you can get all that information through registros centrais, Conservatória, registros centrais in Lisbon. That information can be done there, and you can just have somebody go there and do it. You can also website for it as well.
So let's say somebody was married here and they need to register their marriage in Portugal. What kind of documentation would they, obviously there's a form that they would fill out, right? But then what other kind of documentation do they have to provide?
Oh, after they get that marriage for Portugal, what they're going to have to provide there.
Right.
Well, they're going to have to send their marriage certificate, a copy of that, fill out an application. I think that's online for it. I have personally not done that, so I don't know the full process. But the process, if you go, like I said, under acquisition through marriage in the nationality section of our consular section services, it's all there. I certified copy of the applicant's birth certificate, okay, is what's going to be the required documents. I can read them to you right now. I have them.
Okay, sure. Okay? Awesome. Okay.
It's just easier to do it this way because nothing is missed, okay?
And then can you also specify what documents would need an apostille? Because I know that there's some documents require that. Okay,
so acquisition, we're talking about through marriage or through parents?
Through parents for now.
Okay. So through parents, the acquisition is children born abroad to Portuguese parents, one or both, are entitled to Portuguese nationality. Applications to nationality must be submitted to the nearest Portuguese consulate to be processed and forwarded to the Consulatoria do Registro Centrais Lisbon for registration. Portuguese documents cannot be issued until registration is completed by the Consulatoria, a process which may take up to 6 months to be confirmed by the registrar in Lisbon. Now, I do want to put in here that due to COVID and due to, not everything being still functioning at 100%, that 6-month period it's longer. It's not always 6 months. The registration of children from birth to 14 years of age, okay? Both parents, even if one is not a Portuguese national, must appear in person at the consulate to apply for nationality on behalf of their children and to sign the birth registration. The parents holding Portuguese nationality must be registered at the consulate, and if married, the marriage needs to be registered in Portugal before applying for the child's Portuguese nationality. The following documents must be presented. Children's birth certificate, it has to be the long form containing all pertinent information about the birth. Portuguese passport and identification card of Portuguese parents, birth certificate of non-Portuguese parent, legalized by apostille by the government of the country of birth. So I can speak for the state of Florida. The state of Florida does that. You just have to request it through the State Department of that state. Birth certificate of non-Portuguese parent, legalized by apostille by the government of the country of birth as well. All documents that are in language besides French, Spanish, and English must be officially translated into Portuguese, okay?
Interesting, okay.
Yeah, registration after 14 years of age must include birth certificate translation and legalization fee and a notarized copy of passport. Okay, so registration of applicants 18 and over. We're starting to get a lot of those, all right? I mean, especially college students who now with Madeira trying to become the nomad center, right? We're starting to get a lot of requests. So applicants must appear in person at the nearest Portuguese consulate with the following documents, which be the certified copy of the long form of his or her birth certificate, legalized by apostille or by the consulate of Portugal if born outside of the US as per attached instructions. So I don't have those instructions. And I know that in Miami, we don't do that. Okay, so I think that is, that's a question actually for the consular section.
Okay.
I'm not sure on that one. So, and then identification documents with photograph, signatures such as passport, ID cards, etc. We usually need 2 forms of ID when you come to us that prove that you are living here, and that so sometimes even a utility bill and all helps us out.
So you can have a utility bill as a form of identification with your address.
When you have a passport along, just to prove that you're there and that we know, we use that at the consulate. The marriage certificate, if applicable, for fees, and then there's the fees, and I'm not going to go into the fees because that's going to vary anyway depending on where you're having it done. Not by much, but it varies a few dollars. And the following documents pertaining to the Portuguese parents must also be submitted. Now, this is the key ones, okay? Because if you're acquiring nationality through your parents, you need to have this. Marriage must be endorsed on the birth certificate. If married abroad and marriage has not yet been registered in Portugal, registration must be done by the consulate before the child may apply for nationality, okay?
Okay.
If parents were not married at the time of applicant's birth, parents must sign a statement for confirming paternity while the applicant was still a minor. Okay, so those are other issues that we're, you know, you
have to work through, yeah.
Yeah, you kind of have to work through them. The birth certificate of both parents, parent born outside USA, the birth certificate must be authenticated by apostille or consulate of Portugal in the respective country. And that's pretty much it on what the documents that are needed, all right? And once we have that, and the other thing is that we really can't start any process when the documentation that's being handed over to us is not complete. Okay, so you can't come in on an appointment and say, here, I got this, but I'm just missing one piece. We're gonna
have to have everything.
We can't see you today, you know?
Right.
And that breaks my heart because they've waited long, you know?
Right.
So I always, even when I reconfirm like an appointment, I say, please make sure that you have all the documents. And I actually cut and paste this whole deal again, be it in Portuguese or in English to them. And so that they know, you know, because people are anxious and forget.
So what happens, one of the requirements that was there is that the parent that was born in Portugal has to go to the consulate with them to, you know, sign a document or something like that, right? What if the parents are deceased, but they were citizens?
But they were, you're going to have their death certificate.
Okay.
Yeah.
And, but that,
okay.
Okay, great.
And I don't know, I know that that's happened on 18 and over. I don't know how that happens with minors. So for example, if a minor, for any reason, let's just say, I'm giving you an example, because this is a good question, and maybe, you know, if somebody out there that is from the consular corps that's listening, that might be listening, it's a good question. If for example, a grandparent's taking care of children that the parent had died, both parents, right. Unfortunately. I don't know how that would be handled, so.
Okay. Well, I would say,
I'm gonna ask now too.
Yeah, so again, if anybody out there happens to know the question, I'm another member of the Consular Corps, please put the answer in the comments. And then for those of you who are watching, if you have a question, please post it in the comments on this Facebook Live, and we will we'll answer your questions if we have time. We have about 15 more minutes. So let's talk about now going through if your parent is not a citizen of Portugal, but your grandparent is a citizen of Portugal, because there was that new law that was introduced a few years ago. So is it a situation where, okay, the grandparent's marriage has to be registered in Portugal, then your parents' marriage has to be registered in Portugal? So like there's like a process, right? That people have
a whole sheet on that one too.
Okay. Good.
Okay. And you know what I'm reading from is not any it's not any internal binder information given to me by the consulate by the embassy. It's actually I printed
it's on the website.
You know, I made my own binder. So and it's my cheat sheets, which I love to have. You know, I'm a visual person. I have to look at it all the time. So I'm going to start off by the other day. I had a great call. A really sweet, sweet gentleman who his great grandfather was Portuguese. And now he wanted to see if he could get citizenship through his great grandfather. And I, you know, told him no, that as far as we know, that it's only through the grandparent, you know, immediate grandparents. So here we go. So what's needed on those documents is the signature. The Portuguese government grants naturalization to those persons born abroad with at least an ancestor on the second degree of the succession line of the Portuguese citizenship who has not lost such citizenship. Okay, so that's how this goes. And some people lost their citizenship. If you remember, there many, many years ago, we couldn't have dual citizenship. All right, so that is why I assume that's there. So there's an application that you fill out. The signature must be authenticated by a notary public and its certification authenticated by apostille. Birth certificate of the applicant authenticated by apostille and officially translated. This certificate must give evidence that the parents have recognized the applicant whilst he was underage. Okay, so that's where that actually kind of comes into play there. Birth certificate of the Portuguese grandparent, birth certificate of the parent who is the child of the Portuguese grandparent. The certificate must give evidence that the grandparents have recognized the parent of the applicant whilst he was underage, okay? Mm-hmm. So, and of course, the fee column is in there too. Document proving that the applicant has plenty knowledge of the Portuguese language. The evidence of knowledge of the Portuguese can be given by presenting the following documents. Diploma issued by a Portuguese public or private school under the terms of the Portuguese law. Certificate of approval in exam carried out by any of the institutions mentioned in item A, which was the first one we just read. Certificate of approval in an exam used by the Portuguese consulates when the applicant was still living abroad. For the case, you can certify your proficiency in Portugal through language registry in the exam provided by the Center of the Evaluation of the Portuguese Language, which is CAPLE, the CAPL, in order to receive the initial of Portuguese as a foreign language. Okay, there are many centers in the USA where you can take the exam: Washington, DC, Boston, Newark, Berkeley. The exams take place in May and November. And then the certificate of proficiency in Portuguese as foreign language issued by one of the accredited Portuguese evaluation centers. In case
so you actually have,
yeah.
sorry, I was gonna say, so you actually have to show that you've passed an exam for Portuguese language, and this is specifically for getting your citizenship through a grandparent.
The grandparents, right.
Okay.
So in case of someone, in case of, is there a question or no?
Well, just to clarify, so if you, because there's actually a question on Facebook about, do you also have to have a test on Portuguese that you know about Portuguese history, or is it just a language requirement?
It's just a language here.
Okay.
That's what it says. Okay.
Got it.
In case of someone who has studied in a public or private school in any of the Portuguese speaking countries, the evidence of knowledge of the Portuguese language may be given through diploma issued by these teaching institutions. So if, for example, use me as my case, you know, as a child, I studied in Portugal, you know, languages and in the school system there. And so that would have been my deal had I needed it. If the applicant is illiterate, the evidence of the knowledge of Portuguese must be given according to his capability to show that he knows the language. Criminal clearance issued by the country where the applicant was born. from where he holds his citizenship and of all countries he has ever lived after turning 16 years of age.
So that would be like an FBI background check.
Right, exactly. It's the FBI background check. And the FBI background check can be done in your local areas. I know in Miami, they do them here, with the respective translation, if not issued in Portuguese. The applicant is exempt of presenting the Portuguese criminal clearance since it may be obtained compulsorily by the Portuguese government. Power of attorney, if the application is to be submitted by a lawyer or any other entity. Okay, and then that's pretty much it, what you need to get through on the acquisition through grandparents.
Okay, we do have a couple questions coming in from Facebook. This person is asking, her children are under 14, and if she as the parent obtains Portuguese citizenship, do her children who are half Portuguese automatically get it? They don't automatically get it. She still has to apply for them, but they can apply because she is a citizen now.
Once she has gotten all her paperwork in order, there is a time frame for her to have that they can apply through her.
What's that time frame?
I knew you were going to ask that. I don't know.
Okay, that's all right. We're going to have a multiple.
I'm going to tell you the truth, but I know what I don't know. I'm not going to give you any answer that I don't know. But,
yeah, no, that's perfectly fine. We'll do a follow-up. We have a bunch of these questions.
And yeah, any question so any questions that I can't answer today, I will get the right answers for you. They will be available, and our next talk we can readdress those quickly, and then move on. Okay.
Okay, great. Another question. This is kind of subjective. Do they recommend using an outside service that charges to secure citizenship, if that's a good idea? I mean, I will say, we're not going to recommend one way or the other. I will just say either way, it takes perseverance, and you got to be on top of your paperwork. You have to follow up, even with like the US agencies, if you're getting your fingerprints done, if you're getting your background check done and you haven't heard, you got to follow up. So either way, you have to have perseverance, and you have to be willing to wait, because whether it's you go through the consulate or a paid service, ultimately it's the agency in Portugal that's processing all the paperwork, right? And they've got, I think it's like a year backlog or something like that. So, going through a paid agency, I don't think is going to make it go faster. They will certainly help you maybe get all your documents in order, which could be helpful because it can be confusing. We're not going to make a recommendation one way or the other, but that's my personal opinion. I don't know if you have thoughts on that, Carolina.
No, it doesn't make it go any faster. I mean, it's just, it's for people that really are either, I think if you're using an outside service, is to facilitate gathering all the documents for you if you're not familiar with how things work, or if you don't have the time to do it, all right? So, but that you're paying someone to do this for you does not make it go faster.
Faster, right. I will say, so my personal experience, I had to, I started applying through lineage, I was going to go through my mother's side, but it was really difficult because my grandparents are not citizens. So we were going to try and make my grandmother a citizen first and then me, but we couldn't find the necessary lineage documents in Portugal through the archives. And so now I ended up going through marriage. And in processing the paperwork, it just so happened that my husband said, in Portugal, they use the A4 page, like paper size. So you better ask if they want it on A4 or is like the standard US 8.5 by 11. Okay. So I emailed the Registro, the agency that you mentioned earlier, and they emailed back right away. And yes, you have to have it on A4. So I don't know if that is actually stipulated in any of the documentation that's on the websites for the consulate, but that might be something that, I don't know if we want to confirm that, with the embassy or, but that's something that I was told by the Registro, but that yes, you have to have it on A4. So.
That is to be answered. I have no idea.
To be answered. Okay, we'll answer that. We have another question here, just to clarify. So if your parents are both have citizenship and you want to go get citizenship, you don't have to take the exam, the language exam. You're on mute.
I didn't want you to hear the dog barking, okay? Sorry. The beauty of Zoom, right? No, you don't. You do not have to take the Portuguese
exam. Okay. And are there classes, if you do have to take the exam, like you are going to go through grandparents, are there classes to help you with the exam?
That I don't either.
Okay.
So so I'm going to speak on behalf of the schools we know in Miami, for example. The schools that are teaching Portuguese there, they have an exam in their own certification basis, right? So you pass that exam, then you get the certification that you have the proficiency in the language. So I would assume that's what it's referring to, and that's probably the question that's being asked.
Okay. But we can also find out that information and answer it in our next session. Once you obtain citizenship, do you need to update it annually, or is it forever?
No. Okay. So once you get your citizenship, you get your ID card. You have the ID card, and then the ID card, passport is 5 years. And I should know the ID card because I have mine here. I think the ID card is longer though.
Okay. So it's just like here, like you have to update your driver's license every 10 years and your passport every 10 years, but you're a citizen forever. Right. Got it.
You're a citizen forever in case you, yeah.
So we actually have a question on Zoom. For someone born in Portugal, can a birth certificate be obtained directly through the consulate? So like if they have their birth certificate from being born in Portugal, how would they go about getting that?
Okay, that answer I don't know.
Okay,
I know
we'll find
that
out.
We can't do that in Miami because we're honorary consul. I don't know if you can do it through the embassy. That to me sounds more like an embassy deal, through the consular section there in records, but not, locally, I don't know how that works. But I think to give a little comment on the consulates, their websites are also very informative. They have a lot of the information on there as well. But what I think is important on the consulates to note right now is that they too are not back at full capacity yet, just like a lot of the US and other agencies are not. And so you do have to be patient with us. And I know that some of the appointments are quite a bit out, but that is also because of, what's going on with the pandemic, because we have regulations in our buildings and everything that we can't have a lot of people there anyway. So I wanted to clarify that. Okay.
We just have a few minutes left. And actually, here's a good question. So again, going back to the getting it through the grandparents. If you are under 18, or let's say, they're trying to get it for a 6-year-old, does the 6-year-old have to take the language exam also?
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, okay, so we'll find out and we'll provide answers. So it's a good thing we're having these because, people are bringing up questions that I think probably a lot of people have. And if we can find out the answer and then provide it, I think hopefully it's helping multiple people.
And I think too, it'll help. These are answers that, because like I said, I printed this out of the main, of the embassy information sheets, right? So if we can get answers to these questions and put them back and update that sheet, it helps us all. I think it's easier. We give a better service. The counselors also have access to all this. And even the people, as we all go looking for the information, is available to us. So that question, I don't know that answer, but like I said, I'm always going to say what I don't know, but more than happy to answer the questions as they come along.
Excellent. Well, we have reached our time. Again, this is the first in a series that we're going to do. So that's why we're keeping them short, because we don't want to bore people to death. But there are literally like hundreds of questions we could answer. But after watching this this recording, or if you've been watching live and you think of a question later, you can always email us. If you want to email PALCUS directly, you can email consularquestions@palcus.org. Or you can go to the website of your local consulate or go to the embassy's website, and we will post those websites in the comments of this webinar on the Facebook page. We also are putting together a web page on our website that will list resources as well. So links to the embassy website, links to the consulate websites, and hopefully, you know, we're helping people figure out what they have to do to get the, you know, citizenship or whatever they need to get done. But thanks, Carolina. This was really great. I hope everybody, and I hope everybody's enjoyed it.
Yeah, I hope I at least answered the basic questions that people have and that I get every day. So thank you for the opportunity.
Yeah, no, this has been great. All right, everybody. Well, thanks. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and we'll see you next time.
Bye now.
Excellent. Thank you. Bye-bye.